Hi, Lori Hines here. Welcome back to A Taste of Israel. Today I have a very special guest. This is episode 11, and my guest today is Dr. Rivkah Adler. Hi. So I'm here with her in the outskirts of Jerusalem in
Malay Dumim.
I like the way that sounds. Nice. It's beautiful out here. I hope you get to come. Whoever's viewing this, try to make a trip out here to see this amazing area outside of Jerusalem. So we're here today because I wanted to visit with you about your new book. So she just released a book, November of 2017? October. Okay. So her book, before I show you the cover, is specifically about Christians who live a biblical lifestyle of what we call Torah. Tell us more.
Well, so
show us the book.
I'll show you the book.
Okay, yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
It's called 10 from the Nations, which comes from a verse in Zechariah about the 10 people from the nations who are going to be clinging to the Jew and saying, let us go with you because we have heard that God is with you. And as a subtitle, I called it Torah Awakening Among Non-Jews because there's not really language exactly yet for what's going on. But this book is about people coming from Christian backgrounds who are on some kind of walk with Torah. And as a journalist, the book has as many varied stories as I could find of people who are in different places in their own spiritual development, but all of them come from Christianity, Christian backgrounds, and are turned on in some way by what's going on with Torah. And as a Jewish person, I found that really fascinating and something I had never heard before I started meeting people like this. So the back of the book includes 12 stories of Jewish people like me who are aware of this phenomenon and who are working with people from the nations to help teach them about Torah. Okay. So that's what the book is.
Very fascinating. Yes, I'm so glad you wrote this book. It is fascinating, and there is something going on. And this is the other part of why I wanted to visit with you today, because what I am doing is working on just bringing an awareness to food and wine, if you will, and the spirituality of it, if it exists. So I'm kind of exploring all of this. I don't have a hard position, but I'm beginning to dig around and see. And so here I am, the Christian, looking at it for the Jew for guidance from the Bible. What does the Bible say about food? And I know this is May 1st, 2018, and so we are coming up. There's a biblical festival coming up. So can you talk to us about that?
Right. In about 20 days, ever since the Passover holiday ended, we started counting up or counting down to the anniversary of receiving the Torah.
Okay.
And that holiday is called Shavuot.
Okay.
I think in English people call it the Feast of Weeks. Is that possible? Because it's we count 7 full weeks.
Yep, I've heard this before.
Right. So Shavuot, the tradition on Shavuot is to eat dairy, which is very different than most Jewish holidays, which are usually celebrated with meat. Okay. But dairy meals, and particularly cheesecake,
yes,
which I actually don't eat, but a lot of people enjoy, are associated with Shavuot. And I'm going to tell you 3 reasons. Okay. There's lots more, but these are 3 reasons why there's a relationship between dairy foods and the holiday of Shavuot. Okay.
All right.
So the first reason is kind of logical. Okay. Along with the Torah, we believe as Jewish people that God gave all of the extra rules. So the words that are in the Bible are God's words, especially the first 5 books of the Bible, and it refers to how you're supposed to eat and how you're not supposed to eat, but it doesn't have a lot of detail. The detail comes in the oral tradition. So we believe that God also gave Moses the oral tradition on Mount Sinai about how, if you're going to eat meat, how it has to be slaughtered and how it has to be prepared, because we have a prohibition against eating blood. Okay, so you have to salt the meat in a certain way so that it pulls all the blood out.
Okay.
So all of the Jews that were receiving the Torah at that time, this was new information for them. And so they needed time to learn how to do that. All of their pots and cooking utensils and everything had been used not according to the law. And so they were effectively not kosher anymore. Okay. So it would take time for them to slaughter an animal and prepare the meat according to these new rules. So, but they had to eat.
Yeah.
So on the very simplest level, they ate dairy because dairy was something that they could do very quickly.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
That's one reason. But let me go a little bit more spiritual.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sure there's more. There's always more.
Okay, so
Which I
love. The word for cheese in Hebrew is gvina.
Gvina.
And cheese, of course, is a dairy food. And so in Hebrew, you may be familiar with this idea of gematria, which is the idea that every Hebrew letter has a numerical value, which means that every Hebrew word has a numerical value. Okay. So the numerical value of the Hebrew word gvina, which means cheese, is 70.
Okay.
And 70 it's a very significant number, but
I'm fascinated. My goodness.
70 is the 70 nations, and but in particular, we understand there's 70 faces of the Torah. Okay, so that's one of them. And let me go one more step and say, okay, the Hebrew word for milk, also a dairy food, is chalav. Okay, and the gematria, the numerical value of chalav, is 40.
Okay.
Now, when Moses went up to Mount Sinai to get the Torah the first time, before the sin of the golden calf, we know he was there for 40 days and 40 nights.
Right.
Okay. After he comes down and he sees what's going on down there, he goes back up to pray for 40 more days to ask God to forgive them for that sin. And then he goes back one more time for another 40-day period to get the set of tablets, that the secondary set, which the Jewish people understand was somewhat inferior. The first one was holier, the ones that he broke when he saw the sin that was going on. So there's these 3 40-day periods. 40 is also, just a terribly, 40, 70, there's certain numbers in Judaism, 7, very significant numbers in Judaism, but all of these relate to dairy foods and so forth.
Okay.
And so I just thought of something else, and I'll just say this. I don't know off the top of my head if I can connect it to Shavuot, but it is very interesting. Are you familiar with the story of Yael from the Bible?
No.
Okay, so Yael was a non-Jewish woman who lived in Israel, and it was during a time when the Jewish people were much like today, constantly fighting to retain sovereignty to against our enemies. And she took an enemy of the Jewish people, the general of an enemy of the Jewish people, into her tent and fed him dairy products, along with wine, salty cheese and wine. And he got drunk, basically, and he fell asleep. And so she...
I do know this story. I didn't know her name was Yael.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she took care of him.
Yes.
And thereby protecting and saving the Jewish people. So I guess just as we are talking about Jews and Christians now beginning to build relationships with one another, she was a non-Jewish woman who put her life at risk.
Yes.
In order to take this Jewish this enemy of the Jews into her tent and to decapitate him while he was drunk. And so, besides the cheese, the cheese part of the story, it is true. I can barely think of a biblical story that doesn't have some food component. I guess I could, but there's so many of them, and it's so woven in, and it's so interesting the work that you're doing to pull that out. We have many Jewish books that are written focusing on one aspect of the Bible. As I look over at this bookshelf over here, I see that there's a book called Eretz Yisrael in the Parsha. And it was written by a Rabbi Moshe Lichtman, who went through every Torah portion, every weekly Torah portion, and pulled out all of the commentaries that related specifically to the land of Israel.
Wow.
And other people have done it with other ideas. There's somebody who did it with the concept of light. Light is also a theme that you see woven into the Torah. So what you're doing in bringing out the food and wine themes are very, it's very consistent with a time-honored way of studying the Bible.
Wow.
So good for you.
Well, yay, I'm excited. We are in the land of milk and honey. And so it is hard to get away from. You can't get away from food. It's the hub of nourishment. I've said it over and over. If you've watched some of my other videos, I say that over and over. It's true, but it's so much more than that. And I don't know where this project's going to go, but I do know that there is an awareness that we're missing with the depths of food and wine and the meaning that it has to a life of biblical faith.
Right, I agree.
So it's very interesting to be on this journey. So I'm very blessed to be with you today and to get your insight from Judaism of what, specifically because we are about to see Shavuot come up and the dairy associated with that. So thank you for meeting with me today.
My pleasure.
So again, Lori Hines with The Taste of Israel. Let me see your book over there.
Sure.
With Dr. Rivkah Lambert Adler. Dr. Rivkah Lambert Adler. Make sure that you can see this. And let me tell you about my friend here, Dr. Adler. I'm going to tell you her bio because she's got a fascinating bio. And then I want you to also direct us to your website in just a second. So you are a writer, an adult Jewish educator with a special interest in Geula. Is that how you pronounce it? Geula. What is Geula?
It's redemption. It's the messianic process, the end of days. All of that is expressed in Geula.
Okay. And she has a special interest in non-Jewish awakening to Torah. Now, what is Torah again? Torah? Tell our I know what it is.
Well, okay. In the strict, it's a word that means a lot of things in a lot of different contexts,
okay.
Right? So in the strictest definition, it refers to the first 5 books of the Bible.
Okay.
But it refers to the whole Bible. It refers to all of sacred Jewish literature.
Okay.
All of that.
All of it. It's a lot. Okay.
Right.
So she's very interested in all of this that's happening in our day, in our modern day. You were born and raised in New York, and then you moved to South Florida during high school, and then you attended the University of Maryland, where you earned your bachelor's and master's and PhD. Right. So you were there for a little while.
Yeah.
And you worked in college administration for over 2 decades. You lived in Baltimore until you moved to Israel. You made Aliyah in 2010. So you've been here 8 years. And you and your husband's name?
Elon.
Rabbi Elon. You guys are both very active in your community here as volunteers, and you guys live here just outside of Jerusalem. And you had 2 children.
Right.
And two daughters.
And a son-in-law and a grandson.
Yay! It's awesome. Well, that is the end of this episode. Guys, thanks for joining us. And to tell people where they can find your book, where they can find your writings, and that kind of thing.
So the book is 10 from the Nations, Torah Awakening Among Non-Jews, and the website is 10fromthenations.com, but you can also go right to Amazon, and you can get it in hard copy like this, or you can get a Kindle version. Okay. I also write for a number of publications, Breaking Israel News, which is a project of Israel 365, that talks about what's going on in Israel that's of interest to Christians, Christian Zionists, and so forth. I write for the Jerusalem Post and a number of other publications, but the book is what I'm most proud of and where I think that God is working most clearly in my life right now.
Very exciting. Well, thanks for being with me today.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.